So let's try and take a closer look at the date object in JavaScript. Yeah, not the easiest API to deal with in JavaScript, the date API. Yeah, not the most intuitive. We have a few formats that we can use to create dates. We can create a new date object using the Date Constructor, and we've got various methods available to us. We've got things that we can get the date, various parts of a date, month, hours, minutes, seconds, etc. And there's probably also the set methods down here as well. Oh no, a different page. We've also got the set methods, so to set certain parts of a date object, set the hours, set the minutes, etc. Yeah, so that's what we've got available to us, but obviously in the real world, most of the time we're making calculations between two different dates, working out how long it is into a certain event, manipulating time, making calculations based on how long something's taken, etc. Right? So we just have to really combine these get and set methods and use a bit of standard JavaScript to get that with the built-in methods. Or what most people do in production is they use a library such as Moment.js, which makes things like this a little bit easier for us. So Moment.js will allow us to format the dates very easily, to get nice readable formats. It will allow us to to create time deltas essentially, so what they call time deltas in Python, the difference between one date and another date, the change in time or the change in a date. And then also using just calculations, right? So we can do moment.subtract to just subtract a number of days or minutes. And for most people, this API is a lot more intuitive than the built-in JavaScript one. So if you find yourself working with dates a lot in your job, then I would recommend at least checking out moment.js if your company doesn't use it already, or something similar. Yeah, but I think probably Moment.js is one of the most popular ones. Cool. That said, as most things in this course, we'll look at just how to do it the standard built-in JavaScript way. Cool. So if you need any reference when we're going through these questions, just again go to the W3 Schools dates. So you've got dates, date formats, get methods and set methods all down there on the left-hand side. Yeah. So if I need some help doing these questions, because I don't often work with dates, then you can look there and help me, right? Okay, moving on to the questions themselves. So we'll just use the questions on the platform and we can talk through, sorry, I've clicked on the wrong one, and we can use the questions as a template to base our questions around. Upper beginner, dates. Alright, so firstly, how do we even create a date in JavaScript? There are a few ways. Let's do it outside the function. So most of the time if you're creating a date yourself, you'll use the new date constructor. And you'll invoke that. And inside we can pass one of three formats. We can pass the ISO format, the short format, or, well, these are the most standard ones anyway. The ISO format, the short format, or the long format. What do all of these three formats look like? Well, the ISO format, like most things that are internationally standardized, the Americans seem to win, so we can't do British versions of dates. So we have to do an American version, and it starts with the year, which I guess is not necessarily American, but we have 4 numbers for the year, then a dash, 2 for the month, and 2 for the day. Yeah, so that would be the international standard format for dates apparently. And the short format is using the forward slashes instead. So this is month, forward slash, day, forward slash, year. There we go. The long format, we actually give the month a short name, like MAR for March, yeah, JAN for January, and then the same thing for the day, two day numbers, and then 4 year numbers. So yeah, they're the 3 formats that you can pass in. They must all be passed in as strings. Maybe let's just jump into the console actually to see what all of these create. Alright, so we said we use the new date constructor, and then someone give me a date in the ISO date format. So that was year, dash, yeah, and then the months and the days. Shout out a year. 1995. 1995. Thank you, Cam, for.
Is that what you were born? Yeah.
God, you're young. Yeah, okay. You're younger than the Spice Girls. There you go. There's a bit of trivia for you.
Remember them. Yeah.
You don't remember them. God, what a wasted childhood. Very sad time. Anyway, 1995, and then 12 for the month, and 16 for the day. Do you know Cam's birthday, or are you just doing random days in it? Okay, yeah, nice. And that is what we get back. This quite long object. Yeah, Saturday, December 16th, 1995. The time is just defaulted to midnight. Yeah, 000000. And it also gives us a time zone defaulted this time not to America but to GMT, which is the international standard. So at least 1-1 there over the Americans, right? Surprised it's not New York. That's how all our maps are. But anyway, yeah. Alternatively, how would we write that in a short format? We could just use forward slashes. Okay, so that's a valid date object as well. That's an invalid date, right? Of course. So how would I write a long format date? What they call a long format date. It's not much longer, I don't think. Yeah. Not sure. I'd go dec, but des, yeah. 16 for the day, so you're going day first, are you? Don't forget most things are Americanized, but of course we've got the month already, so yeah, it would be the day, and then the year, what did we say, 1990? Oh, we're going 96 now, okay. Yep, so that's also a valid date. Interesting enough, that seems to be a valid date. We've got the year 0199, so that's a long, long time ago. How low can we go? Ooh, look at that. That's 2001. Well, that's confusing. Just by putting a 1 in there. See what I mean? Like, it's not very intuitive, I don't find, the date format in JavaScript. So if we just put very low numbers, it adds them onto the year 2000. Maybe this it sort of makes sense. Maybe this was a Millennium Bug thing. I don't know, and that's why they've done it there, which was a total hoax. Yeah.
That line that gets returned, the long one, Sunday, December, is that a string?
No, it's a date object. Yeah, so it's a different built-in object type in JavaScript, and we'll work out how to test whether something is a date in a second. In fact, we can probably just store it in here. Yeah, so it's a type of object. Yeah, it's a date object. So it inherits from the object constructor, and then my date will be inheriting from the date constructor. Yeah, from the date object. Cool. Let's store that. And then how would I check that my date is definitely a date object and not a string? Well, first we can check whether it is a string if you want. So how would I check whether something's a string? Type of, yeah. So we could say type of my date and it doesn't say string, it says object, yeah? So that's our generic type to see that something's definitely not a string or a number or undefined, yeah? So we can only really test whether something is a primitive or a more complex object by using type of. So all we've got is that my date is some type of more complex object in JavaScript by doing that. However, I want to test whether it is specifically a date. How would I do that in JavaScript? Instance of, nice. Do you remember the training, or you're good with dates? Huh? You remembered, good stuff. So instance of my date. Is that how I write it? It's not giving me anything. Unquote instance of. How do I write it then? I thought I just wrote it like that. Okay. How do I use instance of, guys? Anyone want to Google it for me? Does it need brackets? I thought it was just an operator, but obviously not.
Essentially, it's
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, my bad. Need to say test whether it's an instance of something, don't I? Where's my console gone? Yeah? Cool. Have I now lost it? Have I still got my date stored? No. Okay. Bit of recap then. There's a new date. Pass in some sort of format.
It doesn't need like 0.
No, it doesn't need the 0.
Oh, okay.
Or does it? Thursday the 1st of January. Well, that's confusing. So maybe it does need the 0. So we've got year, month. So it should be May. Should be the 9th of May, right? Or, oh no, so this is because, yes, when we use this format, then we can't go before 1970. So another weird thing you need to watch out for in dates, right? Yeah. So let's go 1978 instead. And then take off the zeros. Still get the same. I haven't passed it as a string, that's my fault. Oi, oi, oi. Very good point. Right, so did I just talk a load of rubbish when I said it defaults to 1970? Let's check. Undefined. My date. Okay, so we can do it. For some reason the default is 1970. As I say, dates confuse me, but let's see what we can do with it. How do we test? So we test whether my date is an instance of the date objects. So what instance of does is it checks whether the variable that we've passed in front of instance of inherits from this type of object. So you could do the same thing to test whether something inherits from the array object. Yeah? So an array literal is of course an instance of an array. An array with numbers inside is an instance of an array. Is it an instance of a date? Definitely not. Yeah, so that would be how we check whether we've got a date object. And of course, if we have got a date object, then that means that we can use various date methods on it, such as our getDate, yeah? So getDate gives us 9, yeah? So what is the number 9 meaning in the date that we've passed in, which was the 9th of May, 1182. Yeah, so get date is actually returning the day of the month. Whereas if we put get day, it returns 0. Which is not Monday, it's a Sunday, yeah? So get days are 0 indexed. So that means it goes from 0 to 6, 0 being a Sunday and 6 being a Saturday. Yeah, it's not very intuitive, is it? Hence the wide use of date libraries in JavaScript. Yeah, it's old-fashioned. It's an old API, and it hasn't really been updated. So we could also use something like a set method to set the month. So what about if we want to change it to December? Is it going to be 11? Is it 0 indexed, or is it going to be 12? Yeah. See what happens. Whoa. That's an interesting return statement, but let's just have a look at my date now. Quite possibly. Why it didn't throw an error though is beyond me. So you're saying, does it need to be a string? Nope. So that has set it to January, but also January the next couple of years, right? So I think if you wanted to set month, let's see what happens if we do put, let's not do 0, let's do 5, right? Something that's in the middle. So will this be May or will this be June is the question. June, right? So again, when you set the months are 0 indexed. So if you did put 12, it's setting it to the next year, January of the next year. Again, very confusing, I think. Whereas if we just looked at the moment, API, we could easily add on the number of months that we needed, or subtract the number of months that we needed, or can we set it easily? End of day from now. Yeah, we can certainly perform calculations very easily. Anyway, back to the questions. So the first question was again just saying how do we calculate whether something is a date or not. And you told me that we can do check whether the date is an instance of the date object. And if we do that, all good, right? Get day of the month. So these all look like date objects, right? I think we can safely assume that this is using the ISO format for the dates. And day of the month is returning a number, probably between 1 and 31 by the looks of these things, yeah? And this one is not 0 index, which is quite helpful, so at least the first of the month definitely corresponds to the first of the month. So that's a bonus, huh? That would be extra confusing if it wasn't confusing enough already. So, yeah, how do I return the calendar day of my date object? So we have getter and setter methods for our date So I can just put get date, yeah, not get day, get date. Oh, and that's it, right? And this should return the day of the, no it doesn't. What have I done? You didn't return anything. Return. Very good point, thank you. So even though it's in the date format, it's not a date object yet, it's just a string. So let, just call it new date, equals new date, pass in the date, change this to new date, and we are good to go, I hope. Yes. Yeah, so remember to get the calendar day, it's get date, and to get the index, which shows the day of the week, then it's get day. So that's the next question, get the day of the week. And we don't want to return a number, we want to return the actual day as a string. What's our input? Our input is done for us this time, it's definitely a date object, because we've invoked the date constructor. So we can just return so what am I doing? What am I doing to get the date?
So get day.
Yep. So that's part of it. But of course, if I did that, we're just going to get the we're just going to get the number. So we've got 0 for a Sunday. Someone just fell over online. We've got what? You're right, Max, yeah?
Yeah, I was going to say, create an array, the date index, the date number to get the index into the array.
Exactly, yeah. So we need to actually create an array of all the days of the week. Why that couldn't be built in for you, I don't know either. Yeah, there's only 7 days. You think they could add it in there? Say again? Let days, yeah, that's good. So we can have an array and
I guess because it's for multiple languages, right?
yeah, but there is localization built in, so you think they could probably translate the days of the week easy enough. So we've got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So like going back to primary school, what are your days of the week? If anyone wants to do it in another language to teach the people on YouTube how to say days a week in another language, be my guest. We've got some Japanese going on over here, yeah. I assumed it was Japanese, I hope I got that. Yeah, I've messed up all my quotes, but that's fine, we'll sort them out in a second. And lastly, we've got Sunday, alright? Oh, I've done Sunday twice, yeah. So that's just me thinking that the weekend's in Sunday, and for me it does. But I know traditionally Sunday, I guess, was the start of the week for some reason, which I've never understood. Tuesday is missing a closing bump. And yeah, okay. So now we can return days with the index, and it should give us what we want. So we're using the return value of date.getDay as our index to get the correct text string. All good. Beautiful stuff. Yep, so frustrating but not too hard to work out. Get new minutes. So we've got 2 inputs now. We've got a date object, and then we've got not the actual resultant minutes, but how many minutes we want to add on. Yeah, so 11:25 plus 20 minutes gives us 45 minutes, or quarter to the hour. However, if we add on 10 minutes to 5 minutes to the hour, then we get 5 past the hour. Yeah, so that's what we're trying to return there. Again, really easy to do in Moment. We could just do 10 minutes from now, or 10 minutes from date, and it will work. It's a bit more complicated with plain old JavaScript. So, inputs, we've got date, and then we got something like mins to add. Yeah. Alright. So we want to return just the minutes. So I call it new time. I suppose it should be new date, shouldn't it? New date dot get minutes. How would you approach this one? So I was thinking we could just add on some minutes, but maybe we can't even do that. Let new date equals
I tried converting the date to not to minutes and then adding the minutes to add. But I think I came across a problem with the conversion, so yeah, I didn't get through this question.
Yeah, I mean, I would, I guess, just do some sort of modulus of 60, probably. But that's probably not that intuitive. Because also, well, it doesn't matter in this case, does it? But it would be nice if we actually changed the time rather than just getting the minutes. Yeah, look. I'll show you one way, and then if you've got other suggestions, let me know. So I'd say let current minutes equals. No, I'm not going to set anything. I'm just going to do date dot get minutes. Plus my minutes. And then I'm hoping that even if the minutes are less than 60, the modulus will work. So that just means I can never have a value higher than 60, I hope. Yeah, I hope it's going to work like that. So if I've got 55, that should just return 55. If I've got 70, it should return 10, right? Because we're dividing by 60 and then we get the remainder. That's what the modulus symbol does.
Wait, how come we don't have to create a new date object on the date?
Is it not a date
It's
again?
passed in, isn't it? Oh,
Yeah, it's already passed in as a date object.
Oh, sorry, I didn't notice that.
So we're okay there. But no, good thing to check, definitely. And then, so that's not current minutes, is it? It's new minutes. Is that going to work? Yeah. Yeah, it's one way.
Wow, can you just see what happens if you don't put the modulus 60?
If you don't put modulus 60, yeah, so we're going to get things over 60 for the last one, right? So we'll probably get green, green, red. Yeah, because the last one has returned 65 minutes, which should be 1 hour and 5 minutes.
What if you set the minutes of the date to the new minutes? Would it then work?
So if you set the minutes to be 65, essentially.
Yeah. Would it would it just be like error, or would it sort of know to roll over?
Don't know. Good question. Let's find out. Yeah. So new minutes is correct, and then we need to do.
The other example with the January.
It did roll over when I did the set month, so it should roll over when I do the set minutes, right? minutes, and then we put in the new minutes. So we probably don't want to return that directly, do we? And then we'll just return the date object. And hopefully that will be an updated time. So where's the time bit at the end, isn't it? So 11:30, that's correct. 11:45, that's correct. And 12:05, that's correct. Yeah, so we could then do date dot get minutes at the end, and that should get us the result that we want. Yeah? So that's a way to actually update the date object, which is probably a much better practice, yeah, than doing what I did. So instead, to tidy it up, we could do that directly in there. And I think that's clear enough, but I think if you just returned it as a one-liner, it's a bit confusing. But technically, you could do it as a one-liner like that, right? Still works, yeah? So what's happening first? Well, first we're doing the inner brackets bit. So we get the current minutes and then add on the interval we want to increase our time by. Then we set the date to that, and then we get the new minutes of our calculated date. So, yeah, but probably it's clearer to break it into two statements, I think. So I could say new time, should be new date maybe, but we'll let new time equals that. My favourite spelling mistake, ret run. And return new time dot get minutes, yeah. Cool. Oh, no, what have we done? New time equals 30, 45, 5. Is that not what we wanted? Is it not as a number now for some reason?
It looks like.
Does it want a number or a string?
I think this one number.
That should be a number. Right. Have I got an error? Oh, I've got an error. New time.get minutes is not a function. Yeah, because that's not going to return a date object. If we return that directly, it's probably returning the change in time. So return date.set. We see what that's running. And it's returning this, right? Which is probably the change in seconds or milliseconds from. No, what is it? Is it the same number each time? Was that the? That might be the time in milliseconds from 1970 or something weird like that.
Yes,
Is
exactly.
yeah.
And now you have to divide or multiply by some.
Yeah. I'm not going to do that though, right?
pattern.
Just go back to the way we did it before by using the date object, yeah? So you can do that to change the date, and then afterwards you can get the minutes again. So just be aware that set minutes doesn't return a date object, set minutes returns a time in milliseconds. from a point in time. Very confusing again. You can see I'm not a fan of the date API in JavaScript, right? Date.get minutes, that's it, right?
Yeah, it's very hard for the beginners.
Yeah, it's not intuitive at all.
So it doesn't return the date object?
No, it returns the time in milliseconds since a certain date, which I think is 1970. If you want to do some history lessons, look up why. But to be honest, I'm not interested. So I just want to be able to calculate dates easily. Right. So why is it not letting me submit? Cool. There we go. Yeah, and then look, formatting time, and you've already got this sort of token set up for you. Yeah, as a template literal to get it in the correct format we want. Again, with something like moment.js, we can just do moment.format and then stick in the exact format that we want, and it will output it in that way, you see. So if we put month, it will spit out the long version of a month. If we put 3 M's, it will spit out a shortened string. And if we put 2 M's, it will spit out the number, I'm pretty sure. It doesn't show you that example, but I'm pretty sure it will do that. And then we can use, again, hours, minutes, and seconds. So this is quite common in a lot of languages now, to be able to format strings or format dates just by using these coded characters, yeah? M's and Y's, H, little m's, and little s for hours, minutes, and seconds as well. So if you do code in a different language, you'll probably have something like this to use, certainly in the more modern languages. Cool. What are we going to do? So let's see if we can actually get the format we want. Get formatted time, new date. So we've already got a date object, and we just want to spit out the last bit. Now you might be thinking, can't I just do get time? Is there a get time method in JavaScript?
Yes.
Yeah? So there's a set time, so there's probably a get time. But what does the get time return? The time in milliseconds since January the 1st, 1970. Why? I just wanted to get, the current time in my date object, please. So there is a get time method, but do we want to use it? Probably not. So instead, we've got 3 separate methods we can use: get hours, get minutes, and get seconds. And then we can piece it together in the format that we want. Yeah, that's the approach that we have to take if we want to spit out a clock, a digital clock display or something like that. Yeah. So if we have a look here, this essentially to me looks like a digital clock display, right? We've got hours, minutes, seconds. Yeah, so you might see that on some sort of stopwatch timer if you were building a stopwatch app. Or countdown timer to time your gym intervals or anything like that. You probably want some sort of format like this, yeah, on the display on your web page or on your mobile app. So let's write a function to display it like that. And again, we should normalize it so that we get a 0, 5, because by default, numbers that begin with 0 in JavaScript, then it drops to 0. Did you realize that? So if, yeah. So if I tried to put in my number, and I put in some sort of phone number, altogether, then that number is not going to come out as 0795. I think I missed off a digit. It's going to come out as 7795, etc. Right? So if we put my number now, see, it's dropped the leading 0. So be aware if you're entering mobile numbers in forms, make sure it should collect it as a string anyway, but just make sure that you're not trying to pass that number as a number. You definitely want to collect it as a string. And of course, if we do it as a string, then it means we are still going to retain the 0. Whoops. Yeah, alright. Because it's a console. Yeah, then of course we've got the string with the lead-in 0 there. Yeah. Cool. Right, get formatted time. So we said we had to get the individual bits of the time separately, because our getTime method returns a time in milliseconds since 1970. What a use! Maybe it's useful. I don't know. I've never had a use for it, but just got one input, a date object. So we could do something like let hours equals let minutes. We put it down here. We just got date token. Okay. Let minutes equals, and then let seconds equals. So then we can write the various methods. Get hours. What's the one for the minutes? Get minutes, yeah. At least these ones are clearly named. Just don't forget your camel case. Didn't do that the best way, did I? Nope. Yeah. It took me far longer than if I just typed it. And date.get seconds. Cool, so what's all this normalized date token about? Yeah, so that's just so that we can add the 0 if our hours, minutes, or seconds are less than 10. Because if I just return now, well, I suppose it's done for us, isn't it? But if I did return something like this with hours, minutes, seconds, then let's see what we get. So you returned 23:0:0, whereas we wanted 23:00:00. Yeah, we always want two numbers to represent each of the parts of our time. And again here we've got just a 9 as opposed to a 0, 9. Okay, so that's what this date token's doing for us instead. Date token passes in one thing. Yeah. Alright. So how would we use this function to normalize our date so that we've got two numbers for each of our hours, minutes, and seconds? Do I just put it, should I just wrap it around here, or what do I do? In each variable? Yes, we need to wrap every single variable in the normalized date token function. Oh, I wonder why it wasn't working. Oh, it's not autocomplete. Normalize. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we need 3 of those as well. See how faffy it is. Hopefully I'm convincing you to use something like moment. So make sure that one's got a leading 0 if it needs it. Make sure that one's got a leading 0 if it needs it. And finally make sure the seconds have a leading 0 if it needs it. Tidy up. And hopefully now we will get what we need. Ta-da!
Wow.
Yeah. So the equivalent in moment would be, just for a comparison, we could probably return something directly,
This one I did.
as long as we'd installed the dependency, of course, but it would be something like moment dot format, and then we'd open up and we would put in our hours colon minutes colon seconds, right? Done. Essentially. Don't quote me exactly on that, but it's pretty much going to be that, right? Format, and then we'd just be interested in this one. Yeah. Hours. Well, in fact, just 1H. Look, 1H will probably sort it out for us. Although they haven't used the... If we're on 9 o'clock, then we'd be able to tell, but now it's 10 o'clock. It's hard to tell. Yeah, and look, you can append an AM or a PM as well, if you want. I assume that's what that is. So, very nice. A lot nicer than writing that function. But I suppose once you've written that function once, then you can save it somewhere, and you can use it in the rest of your project. So, at the end of the day, you can just invoke it like that, and it's not much different. But if you have to write these functions from scratch, then I know what I'd rather write. Right on. Any questions about dates? No? So everyone's going to go and build a stopwatch app now just so they can play around with times and dates in JavaScript? Maybe not. However, sometimes those things are parts of tech tests, so it's worth at least being aware of dates and how to format them. Yeah? And if they don't say don't use any extra libraries, then use a library, I think. But if not, you know how to do it in raw JavaScript as well. Cool, we'll leave it there then. Thank you very much. I will be floating around. I'm going to start with Chris first because he's not in very often, and then I'll come to anyone else who needs it, yeah?